I'm delighted today to have Ben Dobbin with me. Dobbo, as he is known, is an radio announcer at Triple M and also a well respected NRL commentator and a man of many diverse talents. Um, Dobbo is heading out to Cloncurry for the Sisters of the North Gala weekend to be the MC on the 5th, 6th, and 7th
Can't wait.
April. Yeah,
I can't wait.
no, thanks, Dobbo. Now, Dobbo, your story is just so interesting because you grew up in Sydney,
Yeah.
left school, and it ended up on Brunette Downs. So
Correct.
tell me how all that happened.
Well, I went to school, boarding school in Sydney, to Riverview, and my parents got divorced, and Mum moved to Sydney, and I left school, and I didn't have any idea what I want to do. And my best mate, who's now you guys might know, a guy called Ben Fordham, who's my best friend from boarding school. I said to him, "Oh, I'd love to go to the Territory," and he said, "Oh, you won't last." I'd literally never ridden a horse. I'd never ever. I had no idea.
So what made you decide?
Because I went to boarding school, and I used to go out to my mates' farms every week in the holidays. Like I had mates from Wellington, and I liked the physical labour, and I liked what it was about. And I'd been to a couple of BNSs and sort of thought, they won't back. But I literally rang this mate of mine, David Bradford, who was at Malali, and I said, "Braddo, I'm thinking of going to the Territory." And he goes, "Well, you're not going up there on your own. I'll come with you." And like he was looking for an escape. And so I literally rang Jeff Wagstaff. I got Carmel. And I said, "Oh, hi, my name's Ben Dobbin. I'm looking for a job." And they said, "Have you ever ridden a horse?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Have you ever been on a farm?" I said, "No." And anyway.
They must have appreciated your honesty.
Oh, well, I was straight up. I had no idea. And so I then literally, I then said, "Well, okay, why don't we try and Carmel said, "I'll get Jeff to call you that night." And I still remember it. My mum lives in Mossman in Sydney on the harbour, and I was on a phone looking at the Opera House, and Jeff Wagstaff said, "You want to come to the Northern Territory?" I was 19 years of age, and he said, "Oh, mate, I don't think we've got enough spots for you." I said, "Listen, I just need a chance." And he said, "Righto, be here." And I was there on, I think, January the 11th or February the 11th, and I went to the Brunette Downs in the Northern Territory. I went out to Malali. We went from Malali to Miles, Miles to Mount Isa, and Mount Isa to Brunette Downs in 3 days. And it actually made me. I would not be here today, and I say it, and I've said it, I would not be here today doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for going to the Territory as a jackaroo. It broke me, but it made me. Phenomenal story in the sense that for the first 3 weeks of my life there, I went to a GPS school. I was a knew everything. I cried myself to sleep for the first 3 weeks. It was that hard. I had no comprehension of what a work ethic was like. I had no comprehension of what, that you're judged on your work ethic, not if you're a great bloke and you can talk crap, if you're actually judged on your morals and who you are. And I had it completely wrong. But I wasn't, you hear these stories, you're getting I was never bashed or anything like that. There was just an expectation on how you were to behave and how you to work, and I didn't meet that, and I struggled with it because normally reputation in Sydney's in the city, sometimes people get by just talking about what they've done, and you can get away. Up there was nowhere to hide. I was with 8 blokes in a stock camp, rolling a swag, and you had to be shaved and hair comb when you went to dinner, and it just got me. And I ended up going from struggling to actually embracing it, to loving it, to just absolutely. I still remember this day. I'm at the Brunette races, and this bloke from Gladstone was doing an auctioneer, and I thought to myself, "Oh my God, that's what I want to do. I want to be an auctioneer."
So you were at Brunette for
I was
12
at Brunette,
months.
yeah.
And
I heard the auctioneer at the Brunette races,
Right,
and so
okay.
I went up to him and I said, "How do you do this?"
Oh, wow.
And he said to me, true as I stand, he said, "My voice is gone. Come and have a go." And I'd never done it, so I walked out there, and I was dreadful, but I had to go in front of everybody, and all of my mates from my stock camp were there. So he said to me, at the end of every night, when the last mob of cattle in, start counting and adding them up. So I started doing that, and I went to Jeff and said, "Oh, how do I get there?" He goes, "Well, I know a bloke called John Robbins. Write a letter to him," because there's no internet. Write a letter, and so I wrote a letter to John Robbins in Brisbane and said, "My name's Ben Dobbin. I'm a jackaroo at Brunette Downs. I'd love a start." and I got an interview with them over the phone, and they said to me, go to Springshaw. And I'm like, where is Springshaw? You got to start with Primac Elders. And they flew me to Emerald. A bloke picked me up, and I had 2 bags and not a lot of money. And and that was in 1999. I ended up at Springshaw, and
so how long did you work as an auctioneer for?
So I was an auctioneer till 2012. So my journey was, I started in Springshaw. I won Auctioneer of the Year 2 years later, Young Auctioneer of the Year at the Ekka, and loved it. I went to Mara under Peter Ryan and worked for Peter Ryan for 12 months, and then Noel Grant offered me a job to go to Meandara, and my first wife was from Condamine. And so I went to Meandara, and we started the business out of Meandara. And like, if you go to Meandara, you go, oh, there's nothing there. But it was actually, I mean, if you're an agent, it was a great place to live.
Place is always,
and they're great people in there, and and it was really good. And I got to sell out of Dolby, and I got to sell out of Roma, and GDL at that stage was privately owned, and it was just Noel Grant, Peter Daniel, and Jamie Long. They were just we were on the cusp of something great, and we were all united. It was just phenomenal. It was a great time. Look, and then Jamie sold his share, and we got all offered a share. So I bought a share into Grant Daniel Long, and I was a shareholder of GDL, and Ruralco took over, and it was awesome. But
you're obviously quite entrepreneurial, because you started a
meat wholesale company.
Business,
Well, we bought a farm, and everybody knows what 05, 06, 07 was like. It was just horrific drought, and I had all these mates in Sydney who had no idea about what good meat was. And I'm sorry to diverse, I went to Penny's Butchery at Mossman, and I asked them for a rib fillet, and they brought out this bit of crap, and I'm like, nah, go and get me the good stuff out the back. They didn't have it. I said at the time, oh my God, there's a real opening here.
Yeah.
So I bought cube rolls off Kilcoy for $19, a ton of them. I didn't have anywhere to sell them. I hired a cold room truck, drove them to Sydney, and sold them for $29 a kilo, and put $10 a kilo on them, and I made $5,000 in a day. And I was like, what is going on? Like, we work our tail off so hard. There's a market here. So I then got into business, and I talked to these great, who are still my dear friends, Philip and Adele Hughes, and their family, and we started Rangeland Quality Meats together. We got flooded in 2011. My best mate Ben Fordham gets told by Channel 9, the flood, you need to go somewhere. He's the godfather of my 2 children. He goes, I'm going to Condamine because my mate Dobbo's there. We've been drinking all afternoon. He has to do a cross for the flood appeal at 7:30. He says, come on with me. Come and keep me company. I'm standing there. Not a word of a lie. He says, you're going to be in this. I said, no, I'm not. He throws to me during the flood appeal. I get the microphone, full of bravado auctioneer, half full of rum and coke, and go, yeah, Australia, you need to support. And it went from there. Gary Burns from Channel 9 rang that night and said, I'd like to have a meeting with you. The Footy Show then said, we'd like you to be our Queensland correspondent, even though I'm from New South Wales. I went and did that.
Well, you're on the right side.
Yeah, and so then from there, I had the meat business. I thought, there's a small window here. Like, it's just, and so I went, well, okay. We better give this a go. I got paid, I think, $500 across. I did that. The next year, Triple M said, oh, you're an auctioneer. We'd like to give you a start on a sports show called Dead Set Legends with Ben Eichen and Kevin Walters. And they paid me no money, but it was a start.
Yeah.
The same bloke who gave me a start, Rex Morris, also owned a rural network called the Resonate Broadcast Network. And he, after 12 months, said to me, oh, we've got this rural show that I think you'd be really good at called Rural Queensland Today. Would you mind? And so I went from like absolutely nothing to calling rugby league, hosting a sports show, and hosting a rural show. And I was like, well, it doesn't get any better than this. So sorry.
Oh, no. Well, I was just going to say, do you think that we worry too much about where our future's heading? I mean, I know you have to plan for your future and everything, but from my experience, I think you just get led into places. So do you think we get too hung up
Definitely. I had no idea at 18. We're asking we're asking 18-year-olds to make a
yeah.
decision on their life. I didn't work out what I truly wanted to do. Like, I always wanted to be a farmer. I don't come from a family with a farm, so
Yeah.
for me to be a farmer, like we've got 40 acres. You know, it's great. We've got a few cattle on adjustment,
Yeah.
and I'm loving it. But I never had the family that could pass on the property.
Yeah.
And then when I tried to, it just forgot to rain. It
Yeah,
just
yeah,
forgot to
yeah,
rain, and
yeah.
it doesn't matter. And there's so much luck
It's
involved.
tough.
Yeah, it's tough, and it mentally is challenging. It just drained us.
Yeah.
It broke up a marriage. Like my first wife and I reckon it was the catalyst for, because of the failure and everything. It was the catalyst of what was the starting point of the breakdown of my marriage. Which, it's by the by. I'm not the first. I won't be the last person. But there's no question that what I wanted to do at 18 is different to what I wanted to do at 35. And I finally, at 43 this year, know exactly where I want my career to go. And I put so much pressure on myself to have the answers. I was an agent for 12 years and I loved every minute of it. But there was this burning in me, is this all I'm going to do?
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
worried about what, but I just got led this way. And,
Yeah.
and it's just taking the opportunities when you actually want them. Like, I would not have known. A bloke by the name of Rex Morris said to me, "Have you ever called a rugby league game?" And I lied and said, "Yep." And he said, "Well, can you do a demo up?" I did the 94 grand final because I'm a mad Bulldogs fan. And he said, "You've got 6 games." My first game I ever called of rugby league, I had Wendell Saylor and Gordon Tallis as my co-commentators, and I called a Brisbane Broncos game. I never called, and that is a true story. And I was absolutely hopeless. But you know what? Somebody believed in me, gave me a start, and every time we improved, and you just got better and better and better. I think I'll call 50 NRL games this year. I do it with my eyes closed, you know, you know what I mean? Like, it's what I do. But it was because somebody gave me a chance, and there was a small window, and you wanted to go through it. Like, we get opportunities all the time.
Yeah.
And I think we put way too much pressure. We box everybody now. But I will say this now: if I could give anybody some advice, I've told my son and my daughter they're going to the Territory. You need to have that year. You need to get a work ethic, because I think that's what creates opportunities. Hard work.
Yeah.
They seem to come. I don't have a problem with working big hours, because I learnt that back when I was
And
18,
also
19.
not expecting something for everything you
you
do.
do.
Like, that's
You
really
just do it.
important too, because then they saw that you were someone worthwhile.
And they,
you know,
Jeff
you're
Wagstaff
prepared.
could have sacked me 20 times over in the first month. But the one thing I did do was I worked and I tried to keep, and eventually you get people believing in you. And I'm really honest about this. I work in an industry now where people clock on and clock off, and the only way you get ahead is by hard work, and I'm still doing it.
And it doesn't really matter what age you are
No.
either, because you can do anything at any age.
Well, no one's going to stop me from talking.
So, Dobbo, tell me about how you got involved with Sisters of the North.
Well, Peter Dowling, he was a livestock agent. He was a real character, and I mean, I always sort of had a bit of a soft spot for him. We used to buy a few cattle off him, and I've stayed in contact with him. I've run into him a few times, and I've helped. He had a couple of mates whose sons were at uni who wanted to be football, and so we've sort of stayed in contact. Anyway, and Susan Dowling, I've spoken to because of Rural Queensland Today. She's a mental health nurse. I've spoken to her a few times just about mental health. Anyway, Pete rang me last year and said, "You wouldn't do it." And I said, "Mate, I've got to check my NRL diary." And the planets seriously aligned. I couldn't do it. They had a first date, and I said I couldn't do it. And he said, "Mate, we've changed the date." And literally, got the Broncos taking on St George on the Thursday night, and the Friday I fly to Cloncurry. And when he said, "Would you like to come?" I'm like, "Mate, you don't have to ask me twice. I'm there." You know, like when I accepted it, the devastation of the floods hadn't happened. So it was, at that stage, it was in its infancy. It was going to be the luncheon, MC the luncheon, have a few beers, and there's going to be a camp after round for the girl. Now, obviously, we know what went on, and just what a phenomenal situation now the Sisters of the North has become, and the live vouchers and everything that's just become phenomenal. It's on the national scale. And it's probably even more important that we talk about it now. But I was always coming before it got to this, you know, because I just believe. And when Pete said to me, he said, "Mate, the ladies really don't get the praise." And I was thinking of myself, like I'm an intense human. I go home and I vent. And Kylie, my partner, she has to put up with, like, not only is she raising kids, she's running a house, but she's also having to put up with my bloody mental health all the time and manage me all the time. And that's a bloody job in itself. So when they were sort of like, "We're going to highlight for the ladies this," I was like, "Oh, mate, I'm in." So I rang Libby Trickett, who I've worked with for the last 3 years, and said, "Trickett, are you keen?" And she's like, "Mate, everybody doesn't know that her family originates from Winton originally. She's a Lenton, so the great late Butch Lenton, who was the mayor of Winton, is a distant relation to her. So when I said to her, Cloncurry, what's gone on, she was like, oh, of course, this has happened. So she just needs a hat and a set of RMs, she reckons. So,
Okay.
So, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks, Dobbo. Thank you very much.
Can't
It'll be
wait.
a great weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And look, I will say this to everybody: just because you live in where you live, you don't be boxed in. I'm really about that now.
Yeah.
Like I would never have thought I'd be in Brisbane working, and I get to host a radio show which is agricultural based every day. I get to call rugby league, which I love doing. I still get to ride a horse. I still get to breed a chook.
Yeah.
You know, grow a few cattle. You know, you can do it, and it's not restricted to just I'm going down this path and that's it.
Yeah. And what a great thing for your kids to see you achieve what you've done.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes they're proud because I out them on radio, but I still sort of think that. I sort of think, well, they can always say that I left nothing in the tank, and it's about a legacy a bit, isn't it? And that's what I reckon they can say when that time happens, whenever it is. Well, at least we know he left nothing in the tank, and he really tried to create a legacy for us. So that's my story.
Thanks, Dobbo.
Cheers.
See you. Thanks so much for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please try to remember to just click on the subscribe button so we can keep you updated with everything that's happening. Thank you.